All right. Good morning, everyone. Jim Clarke here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share another contemplation with you. And this week, this fine Monday morning, I want to share the contemplation. The synchronicity experience is the integrative flow of unified consciousness. As we live, we grow. As we grow, we awaken. We continue to grow as human, integrating new information and related experience. So we have our definition of the synchronicity experience as it relates to our experience as human. The synchronicity experience is essentially one of balance, wholeness, and fulfillment. And it comes through the maintenance of relative balance as in the balanced position. There is a source point, dilation, and unified field access. So, what does this all break down to, huh? Let's review real quick what it means to be a human being living in this day and time. The creation of matter, the creation of form, is a creation made by consciousness. In the creation game of the pretense of being what it is not. Consciousness existed prior to any form. It gave birth to form, and it remains, of course, being what it is, consciousness, whatever that is. So we have the theater of the human experience, and we have the reality of consciousness, the mother of all experience in the relative field. And as human beings, we begin life without a clue. We don't come into this world with a user manual, so to speak, but we do have within each and every one of us a primary intention that existed in consciousness as the reason why it birthed all of this in the first place, and that was to fully be itself. So how can it fully be itself outside of pretense? It can't. It has to pretend because it's always itself. So for whatever reason, whatever motivation consciousness has in the creation of matter, of universes, of planets, of human beings, that intention doesn't go away. And since we are consciousness, even though we are living a life as human beings other than consciousness, that intention is fully active and fully aware and fully moving towards its final goal in each and every person on this planet. So what we do is, here at the synchronicity experience, what we're also referring to is a more awakened practice and focus that one acquires as they become fulfilled in the experience of who they are not. The negative experience of being an isolated human being that is birthed and then dies, and that's it. So when you reach a certain stage of evolution within your own consciousness, eventually you become fulfilled in this experience of being a mortal human being and all the suffering that goes with it. And then you cross a bridge. You become naturally inclined to start going in instead of focusing totally to the external world, which is the world that captivates human beings so much. The world of form and the world of doing is pretty much all life is about until you cross this bridge. And that bridge is simply an awakening moment or an unconscious movement in that direction, where you suddenly find yourself with a teacher, and you find yourself being interested in something other than the material world. And so you start to investigate, and then you start to meditate. And in that experience, you learn how to create a consistent focus on the interior of your being, as opposed to being focused 24/7 on the exterior. Outside of sleep time, we're always looking out. We're looking at the world. We're interacting with other human beings or with nature or with whatever. And our doingness totally involves every moment of our lives. And because that focus is so consistent and so strong, that's what we're developing, albeit unconsciously. So as we cross the bridge and as we become more and more engaged in the interior of our being, consciously or unconsciously, we start to get insights and experiences that tell us, wow, there's something more to life than what I've ever found in the exterior. And it is when we get to this point in life that we start to seriously engage in a holistic lifestyle with meditation as a means for creating balance, which simply means that our focus becomes more glued to the interior of our being and less to the exterior, until we reach a point where we develop more and more awareness of the interior simply by experiencing it through meditation, where we let go of our doing, we let go of our data and our definitions of who we are and what life is, just to allow ourselves to open up to something new and different. And as we do this, what we call the source point, the point between the interior and the exterior, this is where ourselves as a witnessing consciousness that's always watching exists. And as that point, that source point dilates, which simply means we become more and more aware of it, it becomes more present to our experience moment to moment to moment. And it is that window that always exists between the polarities of our human experience that allows us to enter into more and greater awareness of ourselves as consciousness. So we continue to meditate, we continue to maintain what we call the balanced position, which is simply that position of focus on the witnessing consciousness that is always watching. It's watching the exterior and it's also watching the interior. It's aware of both as simultaneous creations of itself. So this is, in a nutshell, kind of what being human being is all about. We grow into this, and in traditional meditation systems, it's described as karma in terms of many lifetimes of experience that gradually accumulate kind of a theme from one lifetime to another. It begins as being very dense and very identified with physicality, with survival. Basically, it's a fear-based experience where your total attention is brought to simply surviving. And if you look at the world today, there's still a vast majority of people, or at least appears to be a vast majority of people, who are still fully engaged in survival processes because of the upheaval and changes that are impending in our world today. There's an unknown element, and wherever there's an unknown element, when we realize that we don't know what's coming next, we start to get very attentive. But unfortunately, we also tend to move ourselves into a fear-based experience, and we remain there as if there's something out to get us. That our survival depends on our focused awareness of what's going on around us. But in a meditative lifestyle, in a holistic lifestyle, where balance is being created, and in my experience of this, what happens is that the source point, that dilation, continues to grow, and within that, the presence of myself as source, as consciousness, as whatever you want to call the ground of all being, began to become more and more present within myself. This is a very high frequency oscillation. It's a form of information that is way beyond the mind. It's not a literal kind of exchange that can be put into words, which is why all mystical teachings were the result of experience, and they came after having experiences of being consciousness, and the words were admittedly only tools to help point to that experience because it can't be put into words. So the synchronicity experience, in other words, is simply being aware of yourself as consciousness. And that awareness, which you grow consciously when you start to meditate, continues to expand and become more and more present within you, giving you access in various ways, in various means, which differs from person to person, into insights into yourself as consciousness, insights into the very mechanics of creation itself. Some mystical teachers we know from accounts, and recent accounts too, were very good at instantaneous creations of something like Baba in India, where he would create a ring to give to his disciples on the spot. It would just show up in his hand and he would give it to them. What he was demonstrating there was the power of creation, and which is the power that we are. And he had what's called a siddha, a certain power to actually manifest something as a demonstration of his state of being, as being a representative in human form that could help and train and teach people and bring people into the experience of who they truly are simply by his very presence. The frequency of vibration, the holistic awareness of a master teacher, is the teaching itself. Whatever they say, whatever their presentation is, irregardless of the time, irregardless of the culture, the real teaching is simply being in that vibrational experience, which entrains you to that vibration. And in this entrainment process, we start to vibrate faster and faster and faster as a physical form, ultimately reaching frequencies that are beyond that of physicality. Not that physicality disappears. It could in an extreme case of awakening, of enlightenment, but not everybody is on this planet to demonstrate that, so it may not be necessary to do that in order to be enlightened. Enlightened simply means that you become more and more aware of the interior of your being. You become more of a witness to the happenings of consciousness as a human being, and less a unconscious player in the field of human experience. But that human being that we are, this creation of this body and this mind and the feelings and all that goes with being a human being, that remains. And it remains because without it, we couldn't have this human experience. It's what brought us into the possibility of awakening, and it is that awakening experience itself that is the expression of the fulfillment of the primary intention of consciousness for all of this. And that is, in that moment that you awaken, what you experience is being consciousness. And since you are experiencing something other than what you truly are prior to an awakening experience, the contrast is huge. And the bliss that comes with that is indescribable. And that is the fulfilling moment that consciousness has created for itself. to fully be itself, to fully celebrate itself through the form of you, through the form of me, through the form of all human beings. Now we have approximately 8 billion possibilities of an awakening experience in any given moment. So it's really charging itself up to maximize this experience in this day, which is why there's so much upheaval and so much challenge for old systems of thought and for unconscious behaviors and unconscious belief systems. So the synchronicity experience, the experience of balance, wholeness, and fulfillment, that is the experience that this entrainment is pointing to, and is not limited to Synchronicity Foundation or Synchronicity Sanctuary. It's really expressing in more modern terms the same thing that has been expressed in all wisdom traditions. Meditate, meditate, meditate. Open up yourself to the truth of who you are, experientially, beyond the mind, beyond anything you can think of or believe in. And when you maintain a focus on this, eventually you will birth an experience that will, well, let's put it in colloquial terms, that will blow your mind, okay? This is my experience, and it's an experience I'm trying to share with you through this contemplation. So I think I've said all I can say about it for this moment, and I'm happy to share it with you, and I'll be back here again next Monday morning to share another contemplation with you. Thank you.